peace, and grand rising to the heirs. Today is 11/22/2020. It's 1440 on the sun calendar and 1441 on the moon calendar. We're so grateful to be here. So on November 30th, and this is just a couple of things that we want to, as a nation, take note of and be sure that we tune into the energy. There will be a full moon and a lunar eclipse on November 30th, both happening on the same day, which is very powerful, which is very powerful for us. Very, very powerful. Those events in the celestial heavens signal things where the heirs are concerned. The heavens tell everyone what's going on with us. And that is why, you know, in the past we heard things like the Pope Corporation having a very powerful telescope that they look up into the heavens to see things. And, you know, a couple of years ago, like 2 years ago, they shut the telescope down because of what they saw, et cetera, et cetera. The stars tell of the awakening of the heirs, and that's a good thing for us. Because our energies and our activities determine what goes on in the cosmos as well as on the earth. So there will be a full moon and a lunar eclipse signaling some awesome things happening for us soon after that. Also, the things that have fallen apart where the corporates are concerned, those things were foretold in the stars as well. And so whenever, if you'll notice, you know, earlier in the year and the end of last year, there were events that happened in the cosmos that had not happened for many, many thousands of years in some cases. And in other cases, hundreds of years. And in other cases, decades. And those things, those eclipses and full moons, you know, and all of the things that happened that converged, because this is a convergence. November 30th is a convergence day where there is a full moon and a lunar eclipse happening at the same time. What does that mean for us? That means that between now and then is going to be an awesome time. Yes, Justice Jeremore, we're going to talk about that. Thank you for bringing that up. You and I are definitely connected, as we all are. There are, between now and that time is going to be an awesome time where our Moorish demonstrations are concerned. So it's going to be a great time to do the study, and when you feel that you are competent to demonstrate whatever the demonstration is, go ahead and do it. Today, in this time that we're in right now versus 2 or 3 years ago, things are far more in our favor. I mean, it's always been in our favor, but let me say that it's more evident that things are in our favor when we do our demonstrations. So demonstrations are becoming far more spell-binding and spell-breaking. And so between now and November 30th is going to be an awesome time. And if you want to really manifest, now we're powerful manifestors every day of the year, we know that. November 30th, if you have a specific demonstration that you want to plan ahead and do proactively, November 30th is going to be an awesome day to send out the demonstration, send out the documents, put whatever spell you want on those documents and then send them forth. Or you can send it prior to that day and make it so that it reaches its mark right before the 30th, and then on the 30th cast some more spells and energies on the demonstration. And then watch. Do the demonstration, speak your commands, and then watch. And just wait. Also, that November 30th, they call it the Beaver Moon. And I would suggest that we all look into the characteristics of a beaver and know that those characteristics are working in our favor as well for the Beaver Moon. And then additionally, between now and April 5th of 2021, and first let me thank Justice Malik L. We had a conversation yesterday about all of this, and he's the one who clued me in and brought the energies in so that I could hear these things that I'm telling you right now about the cosmos. Between now and April 5th, 2021, Jupiter will be in Capricorn between now and then. And this is what Jupiter means, and this is going to make our demonstrations even more powerful. Jupiter is higher truth. Jupiter is expansion. And where our governments and nations are concerned, and specifically I can speak for the de jure, original, indigenous, universal Moorish National Republic federal government, as well as the other governments that we honor. Higher truth, expansion, great fortune, erudition, justice, higher spirituality, half water and half fire. Jupiter also is an indicator of all things natural. So we're going to see between now and then even more of the corporate fiction stuff disappear in favor of all that is natural and divine and sovereign and original and indigenous. Jupiter also is wisdom. It is the light bringer, the illuminator. It is ideas. It is sovereignty. It is success. It is the Sky Father. So when we speak about the matriarchal energy, the patriarchy is a part of that. We can say matriarchy all day and we're still going to be saying patriarchy at the same time, because when you say matriarchy, you mean patriarchy too. So even if we say this is something for the matriarchs, it's going to include our male patriarchal energies are going to transfer whatever it is to the son, to the male. So during this time also, it's going to be important, and many of you you've already gotten this message from the ancestors about fasting and the cleaning of the liver, etc., the cleaning of our bodies. That's going to be very important. Drinking as much water. And water actually makes it so that the messages that the ancestors are sending are more easily transferred to us, and we can hear them more clearly. Water. Why? Because the atmosphere is filled with all that we need. Our ancestors left everything here for us. All we have to do is tune into it. Water. And then Jupiter will be in Capricorn between now and then. Capricorn energy seeks equilibrium. And so our teacher this past Friday at House of Reawakening Minds talked about the 7 Hermetic principles. And one of those principles is correspondence. Correspondence is As above, so below. As below, so above. Half and half, or all and all, really. And that's what equilibrium is observing, recognizing, acknowledging both the higher self and the lower self, and honoring both in the ways that they should be honored. And we all will know individually how to do that, because it will be, as we continue to meditate and clean our bodies up, the ancestors will show each one of us the best way to do that for us. Meditation is a good way, fasting is a good way for starters, and then those ways will arch off for each of us in different ways, and we can then share with one another the ways that honoring our temple works best for us where our demonstrations are concerned. The clearing of any energies that are not honorable energies is important. And again, this is not a negative thing. There were energies within us that were programmed in that came from places that were not honorable, where those who were programming us were not honorable. Bow beyond foreign commercial mercenaries, not honorable at all, and we all are aware of that. And so we are to balance that out with all that we do. Having said that, I was talking to one of the Moors today, and I'm sharing this because we all have been through this thought process, and I want to be sure that we understand what this process is all about in terms of one of the Moors that I was speaking with earlier today, and high honors to you. He brought up the fact that he felt like, his mail was being tampered with. And we talked about this before in the past, but we'll keep bringing it up and reiterating it so that the new Moors who are coming, as well as the rest of us, are aware of when we notice things like that. Things like computers not acting right, seeming that mail is being tampered with, and that's a real thing. And feeling like phone calls are being monitored and emails are being watched by some source out there. I was telling him what we said in the past, because we noticed that when we first nationalized as well, it's nothing to be afraid of. In fact, we have nothing to fear on our own land anyway. But what that is, when we first declare who we are and we realize that we are the heirs, and we start demonstrating that, and then we notice things that look like tampering with the mail and phone calls being, messed with, and, we've all been through that. Those things really do happen. Let me say that. You're not crazy. None of us are crazy. The whole earth has been waiting for us to wake up. And whenever one of us wakes up, the energies that come with us waking up are very distinct in the atmosphere. And it causes those who've been waiting for us to wake up to come and begin to examine us and how our wake up is going. And they want to, again, they've been waiting for this for a very long time. And so they want to make sure that as we wake up safely, and that we wake up peacefully, and that everything is okay with us as we do this wake up. Yes, we're going to be tested. And when you notice things being moved around and tampered with a little bit, that's getting in alignment so that as we test and demonstrate that we're the heirs, that things work out the way they should when our energies are peaceful and competent. So when you see it feels like you're noticing, some Moors have felt like they were being followed by whomever or whatever. Those things are all good things in that they've been waiting for us to wake up. And now that we're awake, we are upholding all of the economies of the earth. So it's important that we wake up safely. And it's important that we be tested safely. And that can happen, and it will happen. We're all living witnesses that, when we test with a certain energy, those tests always turn out the way they're supposed to. They always turn out the way that they're supposed to when we test peacefully. And those tests are being set up. But they're tests to make us better. They're not tests to destroy us. Because we've been here for trillions and trillions of years already. We're not going anywhere. But we do have to get better and become more competent and stand stronger and more unified together. And that's what the movement around us is when we declare who we really are. They say to those energies and those who've been waiting for us to wake up, say, we have another heir who knows who they are. Okay, dispatch, go, look, and just arrange things so that they can test safely. Send them a document or some paper and see how they do with that paper. Be gentle, but test them firmly and see if they're going to stand on their square, and then go from there. Let the testing go from there. Okay? Allow them to be tested in that manner. So when we talk about, yes, in the chat, Justice, you put in the chat about beavers build supporting dams that you can cross over and get things done. That's what this is all about. We're moving into those stages and phases. We're building. We're building our own bridge for ourselves to cross over and do what needs to be done. And we're actually building the bridges for our heirs who are coming, those that are coming along the way. So don't be afraid when you see things start to rearrange around you a little bit, and they're going to be doing that the whole time. I still see things moving here and there, and when I see it and I notice it now, I always give thanks to the ancestors. I say, I see that, so I see that there may be a test coming in that area. Let me get studied up. And they'll give us time to study. They will give us time to study so that the next time we take that test, it turns out the way we need it to turn out and that we want it to turn out. And then when it doesn't turn out the way we expect, because we've been programmed to think that this is going to look one way when the grand rising looks totally different from the way we were programmed. But then when we see those things moving, I grin just a little bit and say, okay, I see that test coming, let me get ready for that one. And when it comes, we do what we know to do. And then if we need to make any tweaks and things like that, if we need to make any tweaks or changes to our demonstration so that we can prepare to do it again at another time, then we do that. And some demonstrations we will be doing repeatedly until we get them to where we want them to be. And so we've always heard that we test, and then if we don't pass that test, we have to take the test again. Okay. And the ancestors are not cruel. They're not cruel. They will test us in a manner that where we can take the test and deal with it and learn from it and then keep going. And sometimes we'll pass a test, and then they'll say, okay, you passed that part of it. Now this is the next stage or phase of that same test. You need to come up even higher now. And that's how the testing continues. So when you see things shifting around you, know that your identity and who you really are is acknowledged by the energy. They know that, yes, you are indeed the heir. Now let's go ahead and test the heirs so that we can, how they do. And when the energy is peaceful, we just keep testing and keep going, keep moving, keep going higher. And then we have one another to help us through these processes. And that's why us coming together regularly is so important, so that we can talk about the tests that we're going through. And if you go back and listen to some of the other calls, you'll hear Morris talking about the tests that they've been going through and how they've been tested, so that you can see exactly how the testing looks, what it looks like, and how it can be, how we can make it through those tests, assisting one another. Islam. So that's another something that we wanted to talk about. And then Justice Jiramore, you put in the chat Executive Order 13958. Grand Sheikh Taj Tariq Bey talked about that that executive order this past Friday at House of Reawakening Minds on November the
it was a test also.
Yeah, November the 20th. He talked about that.
Islam.
Yes, go ahead, Justice Jeremiah.
Yes, I was just I knew you would have the information, but I wanted to make sure to put it in there because it is hugely important that many of the things you're speaking right now, you could see them written there. And so when one looks at that, they can literally read into it, okay, this is real. Even our trained, what you call that, beast, but even he can read that, and then he'll find out that everything he's been saying is useless. You know, the Albion that keeps coming in and making a bunch of noise, because he's being told right there, and what essentially the order says that what we are supposed to receive information, which we have been receiving a lot of it, but many of our people have received none, because quite frankly they were not focused on it. They were still focused on their God, which is the de facto institutions. So I just wanted to make sure I brought that up. Yes, I've been listening and studying and doing other things carefully with that, and so yes, just wanted to say that. Islam.
Thank you, Justice Jiramore. We have been saying, with regard to that, you're welcome, Justice Frank. Let me know if anyone else texts you or emails you and needs to get into the meeting. We can unlock it and let them in, and then we'll lock it back so that we can accomplish what we set out to accomplish today. We've been saying on the public record that we are the United States in all lowercase letters in red, in capitis diminutio nolo, in propria persona sui juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredis. We've been saying that for quite a while now because we know who we really are. They hypothecated United States of America, just like they hypothecated our sovereign-born appellation that our sovereign mothers gave us when we crossed the sovereign stargate. And we are without the United States Corporation Company. So we always want to make that clear on the public record. We're without that corporation. And at the beginning of this month of November 2020, Greco-Roman and calendar and 1441 on the moon calendar, the corporation, the United States Corporation Company, placed on the public record an executive order 13958 entitled Establishing the President's Advisory 1776 Commission. And that executive order is dated November 2nd, 2020. This executive order discussed the laws of nature and nature's God. And we already know who that's about. According to those with eyes to see and ears to hear, we know that this is an attempt at truthfully recognizing the force de jure, true sovereign Moorish American government. And the Albions use a term called force majeure. We say force de jure because the circumstances that our liens have created and our court actions have created and us proclaiming who we really are has forced the hand of all who are not us, who were pretending to be us, in the way that force happens. It's a natural force. It's not, we didn't have to pull out guns and we don't ever have to pull out weapons and things like that in order to get those into who, the corporations to do as they should. We never have to do that. We can get them doing what they're supposed to do simply by our activity and by our words, our commands. And so force de jure, that means that the true government is here and everyone who was attempting to be us you're fired. You're fired. And so this order also discusses general provisions where budgetary management and budgetary administration is concerned, as well as it speaks in a civic tone. This is a clear indicator that it is over for the United States Corporation Company and its pretense as government, and that the real government is here, and we didn't have to do anything violent to even get that to happen. All we had to do was stand and speak and proclaim who we really are. So again, and this ties into what we were just talking about, when you see things start to move around you in a subtle way, when you declare who you are, or when you get ready to demonstrate, or when you've done a demonstration, you notice things start to move, little subtle movements around you. That means that they know that, yes, you are who you say you are, and that when you are ready, the test will begin, and it's not going to be anything that will hurt us. It won't hurt us, but it will be something where we have to stand and move past the programming, because they know we've been programmed, and we do too, and we know how to deprogram ourselves, and it's only through the testing that the deprogramming happens. And what are we doing? We're deprogramming from that and then reprogramming ourselves back to our godness, And for those who do not know, we created them. We created all of that. Everything that's happening on our land right now was by our own creation. Okay? So, as we stated earlier, our teachers have recently discussed the same executive order. And one thing that was stated is that we are about to receive a bump forward technologically and in all other ways. We knew that that time was coming also, and that's what we've been preparing for. When we declare our nationality and we terminate all corporate contracts, that is in preparation for this whole bump forward. Okay. we as a nation and as government are being prepared for this acceleration forward, because it is an acceleration forward. But this preparation may at first look like we're going backwards technologically. It's going to look like that, but it won't. Because again, none of this looks like we thought it was going to look in our programming. It's going to look totally different from that, and we know that now because we've been watching it and seeing it and being a part of and causing the movement and the unfolding and the revelation, the revealing of who we really are. And Empress Shade, I'll let you say a little bit about what you put in the chat in just a minute, because that's important. It has everything to do with us moving red tape, is what they called it, out of the way so that everything can come forward. That belongs to us. All of that belongs to us. Okay, so in order for this leap forward to take place, we had to return to the foundational principles in everything, to include technology and all of that stuff. See, we talk about technology a lot in terms of, you know, things being messed up, you know, phones being tapped and all of that kind of stuff. When we have proof that far greater technology exists. And we invented it. You can go back millions of years and find technology that is far greater in terms of its workings than what we see right now today. But we, as the heirs, had to be brought all the way back to the foundations of technology, which is the land, because that's where everything started. All technology starts with what's underneath the land. That's why they always talk about putting things under the land first. All cell phone towers and all of that, they had to be connected to the land in order for that technology to work. Internet, same thing. Telephones, same thing. Computers, all of that. It starts with the land, and because the land belongs to the heirs, we must be awake, and there has to be full disclosure in order for us to move further technologically. The infrastructure has been put in place, and now it's time for that leap to happen, but it cannot happen without our fully informed consent. But we had to get past the things that we're getting past now, which is those who sought to regulate our ability to move about on our estate. We had to get past that. And some are still getting past it, and some will, when they're going to wake up and need to get past it as well, and we'll be here to help. Each and every one of us will be here to assist one another with getting beyond those that would seek to regulate our estate. You know, they regulated it supposedly in our absence, but we've always been here. We never really went anywhere. So what is the foundation of all technology? And not just technology, but the law, because everything really starts with the law and the land. That's why the law of the land is so important. Because everything starts with the law and land. When it comes to any claim, that's why we're the people of the land. Because all claims actually have to go through us, Moors, all of us. It has to go, any claims to anything on our land must go through us. But we have to be competent to govern that. And that's what all of this is. That's what this is all in preparation for. So we had to be brought all the way back to our beginnings and the honoring of our foremothers and forefathers and the things that they put in place. A part of that is going back to all things analog and manual. That's what we had to do, okay? Analog principles are the foundation that all law and technology is built upon, and I'll explain that in just a minute. As we continue to study analog law and technological principles. Okay, yes, natural signals in the chat, yes, absolutely. As we continue to study analog principles in all areas, to include banking, computer technology, law, commerce, shipping, communications, etc., because we're preparing for universal commerce among the heirs. And as we continue to study analog principles in all of these areas, this foundational knowledge will open the doorways to the highly advanced creative memories contained within our genetic coding. Our ancestors have given us some information that will change the whole earth in our genetic coding, but we had to go back to the foundational principles in order to access that. We have to know how things begin and start, including ourselves. We had to know that we're the heirs to everything and how that happened. How is it that we became the bloodline and birthright? Well, it's because we're the primogenitors. We come from, and we are them returned. The bloodline never changed. It was never corrupted. Our mothers are still our mothers. They're still sovereign throughout the ages. And so this is why most of the processes that we're doing today, and see, we've been on this pathway the whole time, but let's explain how we've been on this pathway the whole time. On the analog pathway the whole time, because most of the processes that we are doing right now are analog processes. Okay. For example, our lawful affidavit. That's an analog process. It's a manual process. But in order for any of the other things that come after that, such as properties and claims and things like that, in order for that stuff to have validity, the foundation had to be clean and clear and right and analog, so that it cannot be duplicated by someone who's not us. And the processes that we're doing today, and we've spoken about this and we see it happening, the processes that we're doing today, we will evolve far beyond them. But we had to do them, and we had to show that we were competent to do them. That's where our affidavits being competently written in red in all lowercase letters and all of that comes from. And so we're doing those today. They are a necessity, and each more should do them. We must do them in order for each one of us to cross over, okay, and be able to go on to the next level. We have to know, at least place on the public record our nationality in a competent manner, and terminate all corporate contracts in a competent manner so that those contracts don't hold us down and keep us tied to something that's not real. Because that corporate stuff is not real. It's not. We all know that. We see it. That's why it fell so easily. And when I say easily, I mean it only took the Moors leaning on that thing for a minute, and now it's a big old burning pile of rubble. And so the processes that we're doing today, they're necessary. Those are exercises in competence. They're necessary, and we will evolve far beyond them.
Yeah, it is bullshit. Nice.
We will beyond them, far beyond them. However, we will study to know the base processes in order to rise above the necessary exercise of doing them. So we have to do them in order to rise above them. We have to know the law and know why we're the heirs before we can move forward in our own courts and all of that. And we've done that. And that's why we have our own courts now. And that's why our courts cannot be violated. Yes, Islam, Empress. Thank you. And I'll unlock it every now and then to let the Moors in as well. okay, so that everyone can come in. And it's important that we thank you for all who were able to get in. Appreciate that. And thank you for continuing to be patient while we let that in. You know, let the Moors in and take.
Glad you're going to unlock it for me once in a while,
energy
Pauline,
out.
so I can get back in, you stupid fucking asshole.
And so that is why we have to do, I'm going to try not to laugh too hard. That's why we have to continue doing what we're doing. We have to do the basic foundational processes of affidavits being written competently and so on and so forth, properly claiming conveyances and domiciles and other property. That has to be done properly and competently. We are currently in Islam in the chat. Yes, Justice Amos. Islam. We are currently in a necessary learning curve. That's what the Grand Rising really is. It's a learning curve. And so in this learning curve, there are things that have to be done that we will not have to do later because it's going to change, but we have to do it now. One of the examples of things that we did in the past that we don't do now is when we first started putting affidavits and liens on the public record, we used capital letters and black ink. The ancestors honored that because the energy was not war energy and it was sincere energy in all of us. So the ancestors said, okay, we're going to move, we're going to hold back that corporate energy because they are declaring who they are, even though they're still, you know, doing it a certain way, you know, black ink and capital letters. But as long as their energy remains pure, we will continue to give them the lessons that they need in order to learn who they really are. And that's coming from within us. And then as we, yes, in the chat, Islam, given in degrees. We're getting the different degrees, the Masonic degrees that we naturally get. We didn't have to take a Masonic oath to get these degrees. The ancestors will give them to us as we keep our energies clear and as we demonstrate our nationality peacefully.
Islam?
So, yes. Yes.
Just camelback on the one thing with that. As soon as we know that we are the only Masons that are original and everything else is either made by us or a copy of us, then you know, it'll be all good. Islam.
Yes. Islam. We are all good. Yes. So that's beautiful. We have nothing to worry about except to continue to study and be ourselves. That's what we are doing. And so we are in the necessary learning curve. An example of that was the recent changes that we made even to our governmental seal, whereby the lettering was made in capitis diminutio nolo, which means we took all the capital letters out because we're not a part of the capitalist system. And that brought our seal into its proper jurisdiction. And it was in the proper jurisdiction by our intention previously. So we don't beat ourselves up for that. Nor do we, you know, there are other nations who have seals that have capital letters on it. It's okay. Because the intention is for them to be themselves on their own land. The ancestors honor that. Our initial seal was honored by our sovereign ancestors based on our sincerity and peaceful energy. And now we are rising above the corporate capitalist system, and the said grand rising is evidenced by the change in our governmental seal, among other evidences. The learning curve is essential. That means we have to go through these processes. The ancestors could have told us that from the very beginning. They could have told us no capital letters from the very beginning, but they chose not to. Why? Because they wanted to give us a little bit of information first and see how we demonstrate that information. For example, some people, when given the lean process, and this didn't happen often. It didn't happen often. Most of us, you know, are peaceful. In fact, 99.9% of us are peaceful. But there's always one or two of us who threw that lean process around as if it were a weapon and was threatening people left and right and all of that. And the ancestors are like, no, that you can't, it's not supposed to be done as a revenge mechanism or anything like that. We do it in order to get everyone in alignment on our land. Okay? Everyone needs to be in alignment on the land. So we put the law out there and we lean them if they're out of alignment. Not because we're mad and they stepped on our toe and they put us out of the establishment and all of that kind of stuff, because sometimes they'll do that if we don't, you know, if we claim a corporate status unknowingly or if we consent unknowingly or something like that. We've had things like that happen where we did not fully put our competent selves forward. Okay, so we chalk it up and then we go again. And when I say go again, go study again until we get it right, and then we peacefully do the demonstration again. We don't just stop and give up after one demonstration. We keep doing them. And so we were taught capitalism in the corporate education system without full disclosure. They taught us to use capital letters. They would say, oh, you know, when you were in the second or third grade and whenever they were teaching you to write, teaching us to write, they would say, okay, the first letter has to be capitalized. Really? Really? We didn't know that that is not true. It has to be capitalized for them because they're the subjects, not us. But had we been in Moorish schools like we're starting now, and each one of us, I don't even have to be conducting a Moorish school 7 days a week in order for me to tell heirs, don't use capital letters, use lowercase letters. All we have to do is tell our heirs, and they don't, and just keep reiterating the importance of it. And we'll show you a little something that has to do with that too in just a moment. And so the said capitalist system was inadequate for the sovereign by design. And that's something that our Grand Sheik said this past Friday. That corporate education system was inadequate by design. Now, what we know, this is what we know. This fact still works for our good because everything that has ever happened has been for our good, because it brought us back down to basics in order to prepare us for this great leap forward that we are about to experience. That phony corporate education system showed us what not to do. We needed to know that before we can make a leap forward. We need to know that if someone hands us documents and it's got capital letters on it in black ink, that you're not talking to me. This is not for the sovereigns. It's not for the heirs. How are we going to fly this high above and we don't know those basics? We have to know those basics. And that's why we had to go through that system. So we're not mad at the system. It's preparing us for where we're going now. The heirs have to come out of that system immediately, instantly. They don't need to be in there at all because we're preparing to leap forward, and we are not leaving the heirs behind. Now that we know better, we can tell them and we'll do better. This is why we must stand and study and govern all things on our vast estate so that we can know the foundational principles in order to build our advanced future on our sovereign, solid, erudite understanding of the basic principles. So when we talk about analog principles, handcrafting a lawful affidavit on our own letterhead, in red, in all lowercase letters, that's an analog process, and it's a foundational principle that must be done and demonstrated before, okay, someone is signed in as Empress, as one of our empresses, who's not her. Yes, so let's go ahead and boot
the fraud.
Yeah, someone signed in.
Hey, Jeremy, you fucking fraud. You're a fucking.
Yeah, there it is, right there. Get out of here. And you see how he signed in. He signed in as one of the heirs. And so if you got anything, you know, if there was any messages going back and forth, know that that's a fraud. Okay? And that's why it's important for us to know that, let me see, I think it's another one in here.
And his head could be taken for that.
Yeah, he can. It can. But you know what? His head,
we don't want it, though.
We don't want it. It's not worth anything. If it was worth something, we would.
Why don't you come and get me, Jeremy?
You know,
hey, Jeremy, why don't you?
If it was worth it, we would do it. But we have bigger fish to fry other than little minnows. So back to the foundational principles. That is why the foundational principles are so important. Because in order for us to take this leap forward, we have to know the fraud when we see it. Now, that fraud, we know that's fraud because the fraud was not speaking in love. Even though we didn't see the face of the fraud and the fraud was pretending to be one of us, and that's why this foundational principles and our spiritual unity is so important. When you hear and see, I don't care if they do have something, they and L, if it's not in love, then it's going to be something that we don't have to acknowledge that. If it's not done in love, we don't have to acknowledge it, period. And we say, okay, even if that was one of the heirs and the heir was upset, etc., we don't have to be mean even. We can just say, okay, that heir is having a bad day. Let's keep going. Let's keep moving. And they'll catch up. If it's really them, they'll catch up. If not, they will reveal their hand like the Albion just did, reveal their hand. And then, we boot them and keep moving, And so that's, again, why the foundational principles are so important. If you see anything that does not sound foundationally sound, that's why we have to do our own study. That's why our own study is so important. And then knowing one another. I knew when I saw the writing there in what that one was putting in the chat that was not who they said they were. Because I know my sister. My sister would never say that. So I wasn't even worried about it. I knew it was someone else pretending to be her. And sure enough, as soon as he spoke, we were able to put him out. Knowing our brothers and sisters, all they're doing is making us more unified. And knowing one another. Knowing that our sisters and brothers would never say anything harmful. We know that, so we'll be like, that's not my sister talking like that. That's someone else talking like that. So, where the foundational principles are concerned, that is also one of the foundational principles. It's knowing one another and knowing that the tree is known by its fruit. I know my sister's fruit. She knows my fruit. And we've done enough calls to where everyone is starting to know one another's fruit. In looking at the previous education system that we have just come out of, and we came out of that in favor of erudite, high Moorish sciences. Because again, that previous animal education system, because that system is for animals, it's not for the Moorish gods, it's not for us. It was inadequate by design, as previously stated, because it was designed in servitude and in bottomry instruments. It was designed in an economic system of bottomry instruments in servitude. Bottomry instruments were used to perpetuate the economy of servitude, to include all that we're coming out of. And in many cases, that Job, etc., that's why you see all of that whole system starting to slow all the way down, and it's going to come to a halt here shortly, a complete halt shortly. Because we were not designed, that's a servitude system. And as the heirs, we're not designed for that. We can do it because we can do anything. And we did do it. Many of us had, you know, the 9 to 5 going at it. And we were really good at it. But it did not serve it was against our nature. Because we know who we really are on the inside. And now we know for sure. And so, for those, yes, Justice Juramore, if you want to say a little bit about that, because sometimes when we're speaking, I don't go directly at it in that manner, because education and Job's in that manner, in the way that they were presented previously, is docility training for animals. So I'm glad you put it that way. Islam.
And that is, again, that is actually the study of it will tell you that's exactly what it is. And Brother Tosh has been talking about that for a couple of years now. In fact, over the last year, a lot. Because it is so. We had to be trained like animals to think like animals and act like animals. Obviously, if that is not our organic self, and we start acting like that, then we're acting out of character, which means we, by our own actions, place ourselves out of our own jurisdiction and out of our own status.
Yes.
That is the whole purpose of and it's even before 1902. 1902 was when the formal version of it was introduced, where it would take 3 generations or 60 years to get it laid down. So 1902 to 1962 is specifically 3 generations or 20 years. What happened in 63? It seems the whole world started going to hell in a handbasket again. But to make that happen, you know, all this stuff had to happen, the World War I, World War II, and all the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
All of that was training, to train our minds to think that wars and all these things are actually happening, when in fact, at all those times, we were the ones happening to it, because we were minding it, thus magnifying it and allowing it to happen. And now, when we don't mind it anymore, it just can't happen. It fizzles out. Islam.
Late to your day, you're a fucking fraud.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's the animal. Actually, that's the training that they wanted all of us to be like. And as long as we reacted like that and took up weapons and went to war, we were playing absolutely into that system.
Yes.
So we can observe that and see what we're supposed to learn not to be stupid, because we were stupidified.
Yes.
And being stupidified is not the same as being stupid. It's a learned experience. Islam.
Yes. Islam.
Iris.
See, that's really good. That's really good, Justice Jermore. That's really good. It's the one, the visitor, the servant visitor who comes in and cuts up and says all types of craziness. Again, as long as we were the ones talking crazy and acting crazy and feeding into animal training, everybody was comfortable. Because they were being us, and they knew as long as if we were coming in talking crazy like that, they already knew they didn't have anything to worry about because we were not competent. And some of us did burst into meetings on these JOBs and talk crazy and act crazy and get on the job and coach, some did that. And as long as we were doing that, they knew they didn't have anything to worry about in terms of us taking over, regaining possession of our estate and being competent to govern. Okay? And now every time that energy comes into the meeting, we can be comfortable knowing that we're fully in control of our own vast estate because they're not competent to do it. Look, there's no law being spoken. Yes, in the chat, original order is being restored by the heirs. So whenever we hear that, it bothers some people, but for me, I'm like, yeah, we got nothing to worry about. We got this. We got this. So now, if you look on the screen, can you see the letterhead on the screen? I want to be sure you can see it because I'm about to change it into something. I'm going to scroll down just a little bit here because I want to show you something. Okay, thank you, Empress. Okay. Now, when we talk about competence in that education, animal training system, and capitalization and in capitis diminutio nolo, I want to, we know that we should be using all lowercase letters in red. We know that. We've proven that because that's the creditor status, and they would not teach us the creditor status. We had to learn that ourselves. We were supposed to teach one another that. But I want to give you just another something that they were going by, and they didn't even hide it. The very first USC code, the very first subsection, 1 USC Code 1, words denoting number, gender, and so forth. Did you know that words denoted numbers and genders and so forth? And, we can tell you what so forth is, too. So forth is the names, the sovereign appellations of the heirs where they were attempting to connotatively say them. So let's look at that. In determining the meaning of any act of Congress, and we know we're the Congress, but for the sake of this USC code. See, now we've always been saying also that USC codes must be decapitalized. They have to be decapitalized and decolonized. So let's look at this one. In determining the meaning of any act of Congress, unless the context indicates otherwise, words imparting the singular include and apply to several persons, parties, or things. Words importing the plural include the singular. Words importing the masculine gender include the feminine as well. Words used in the present tense include the future as well as the present. The words insane and insane person shall include every idiot, insane person, and person non compos mentis. That means not mentally competent. The words person and whoever include corporations, companies, associations, firms, partnerships, societies, and joint stock companies, as well as individuals. Officer includes any person. Now remember, person still means all these other things up at the top. Officer includes any person authorized by law to perform the duties of the office. Signature or subscription includes a mark when the person making the same intended it as such. Oath includes affirmation, and sworn includes affirmed. And this is the part that I'm really wanting to focus on that we're about to read right now. Writing includes printing and typewriting and reproductions of visual symbols by photographing, multigraphing, mimeographing, manifolding, or otherwise. So when this is capitalized, when we're talking, because this is a capitalized USC code, and when it's capitalized, it means what the capitalists want it to mean. And what they're telling us here is that writing includes printing and typewriting and reproductions of visual symbols. And when you reproduce a visual symbol, reproduction can take on any form. That's why no one represents and reproduces the heirs. We do that. Only we can reproduce more heirs. They cannot. It says visual symbols. So to them, visual symbols is still writing. A capital letter is not a letter. It's a symbol.
Islam?
Islam.
One little piece not mentioned in that is that handwriting in, like you said, in no caps and in red actually is the superior form of writing. Yes. It always overrules any other form of communication.
You jumped ahead of me, but you're so right. I've
been doing that one for years, so I had to bring it up because sometimes it's hard to get it across. Islam.
Yes, thank you so much. That's where we're going next. It does not say handwriting. That means handwriting means exactly what we say it means. And that's why our sovereign autographs are so important. And our right red thumbprint as a symbol of our sovereign status. Because it cannot be misconstrued and taken all out of context and all of that. It means exactly what we say and intend for it to mean. That's why we don't have to use a whole lot of words. Our intention comes across in our writing. That is going all the way back to analog foundational principles so that we can leap forward. We had to know how to properly handwrite our own affidavits. And I'm going to say this because I think it's important and I'm so grateful. I am absolutely grateful and I honor the work of RV Bay Publications because that was the first exposure that I had to sovereign affidavits. Many of those affidavits our Grand Sheikh Taj Tariq Bey wrote, and others were written by the competent empresses, Empress Ana E.L., we honor them. Empress Rosmariah, we honor her. Empress Zalil L., we honor them. Just high honors all the way around because that was my first exposure to sovereign affidavits, knowing that we have, first of all, we have government letterhead. What? Are you serious? Really? And then we can write it and make it say whatever we want it to say as long as it's in alignment with the law. Oh, you can't turn us loose like that and us not build what needs to be built and tear down what needs to be torn down on our land. You can't let a bunch of heirs loose with that kind of information. Yes, you sure can, and they did, and that's what we did. And look now. So that's what going back to the foundational principles is all about. We had to go back to the foundation so that we can make this leap forward that we're about to make. And all affidavits are analog. That's analog law. It's not on a blockchain or anything like that. It's analog. It's not digital because it's written by our own, we sign it in our own handwriting. That cannot be represented by any corporation. That's how important our handwriting and our sovereign autograph and our right red thumbprint is. It supersedes any of the stuff you see on the screen, including those doing business as officers, etc. We're the real officers, period. So that's what gets us away from bottom-read instruments that whole fake education system was built on. They taught us what they taught us and then have the audacity to teach us how to write checks and sign them in black ink using capital letters, bottom-read instruments. Bottom-read. That means the bottom of the totem pole, the bottom of the pyramid hierarchy. It's the bottom. We're at the top. And so that whole bottom-read instruments were used to perpetuate the economy of servitude. And that system has now failed even those who were implementing it. And now their signatures used to be able to get them some more debt and can't even get them that because the heirs are awake and we've spoken. Okay? And so the corporates have had to put forth a narrative of a pandemic, et cetera, to cover the complete, irrevocable, irreversible, unrecoverable, absolute, utter, total, final, verifiable failure of the said foreign corporate paper system. It's a wrap. They're finished. It's done. The said failed system can no longer afford to send in the 3 M's to attempt to implement their capitalist system. And our Grand Sheik talked about the 3 M's on Friday. We want to reiterate that because we've seen that formula. We've seen, yes, Empress, I'm sorry, Justice Frank L. We were talking about the affidavits, and so the ones that we mentioned did write the affidavits, and we're honoring them, but we honor all the heirs and all the empresses that are doing this work, including all on this call and all who will hear it. We honor all heirs. And so the foreign corporate paper system, that failed system, they used to have a formula that they would do. The formula is the 3 M's that were mentioned previously. What are the 3 M's? The 3 M's is first they send in the Christian missionaries, which is what they did in the 14 and 15 and 1600s. They sent in first the Christian missionaries, and the Christian missionaries came with the cross and a flag. And they said, with these signs we conquer, and they planted their cross on our land and said, Christianity will go out to all the earth from here, from these shores. This is where we will conquer the whole earth. That's the first M, is the missionaries. And again, original Christianity in its original form is honored. But colonizing commercial mercenary Christianity, nope. That one is the Christianity in all capital letters. And it's not the one in all lowercase letters, in red. So missionaries, the colonial colonizing missionaries come first, and they soften the air up and get us docile, just like the secret treaty of Verona states. The high contracting parties using religion to make the masses docile, followed by commercial mercenaries, and then the commercial mercenaries come in and they start saying, oh, we come in peace, we come to trade with you, and here's a Bible, we trade these too. And then once they get the land and the people of the land all softened up and docile and comfortable, so to speak, then comes the third M, which is the military. And when the military comes in, that's what we're coming out of now, is that whole thing. And military, yes, Justice Gilmore, that's important. The missionaries and the commercial mercenaries is where the amalgamation is happening at. That's where the getting in bed with them was happening at.
Islam?
Yes.
The bed-in is also the acronym, remember. And many military aren't taught about this, but, that is how you bed in with the Peace Corps, which are called the missionaries. And then so what you befriend, right?
Yes.
Befriend is the first part of bed in, and then embrace is the second part, and then devour is the third part.
Hey, why don't you tell them
always been done. Befriend, embrace, then devour. That's how they've done with all the countries that things are being done with. So it's just what happens.
Yes.
Islam.
Yes, yes. And see, that befriend, embrace part, that is where the Christianity in all capital letters comes in at, because it's colonial. They are coming specifically to get land and to take over in that part. And again, we're not talking about Christians from when we designed Christianity initially. We made Christianity so that those who were not us would have an outlet by which they could express their thanks to their Creator. Okay, so we're not talking about those Christians because they had good intention. We're talking about the commercial mercenaries that's coming over here talking about they were looking for religious freedom, but every time you turn around they had a gun in their hand. And it was aimed at us. Those are the ones we're talking about. And they had contracts in their hands. Those are the ones we're talking about that we're not contracting with you. Okay. And so they came, the fake ones, mercenaries, the missionaries. And the missionaries, yes, onward Christian soldiers marching as to war. That's what all of that is they wanted us to, to accept their God as our God. And were they successful at that on our land? I'll let you think about that piece.
Islam. Just add in again where I remember that as a little child and was trying to figure out where the heck that comes in. One is onward Christian soldiers marching us to war with the cross of Jesus going on before, and
wow.
Then they tell you about all the peace and Christ died for us and all. Who killed him?
Hello.
It's whacked. But anyway, that's how they work. Islam.
Yeah. And we fell for it. That's why they call it the fall.
Hook, line, and sinker. Yep.
But in our hearts, all we were thinking was, well, you come here for whatever you came here for, and, okay, everyone on our land be free. But then we started amalgamating And that's where amalgamation is a problem. That's where it's an issue, is when we are talked against our own godness in order to accept something that's outside of us as God. There is no God but the God within us.
Islam, it's more than that. A lot more. The big part about it, the amalgamating, when the womb man amalgamates with the albion, that is where the breach happens, which goes all the way back to going into Europe when the Moors, and they call it, they say the Muslims or the Muslims went into Europe to save them from extinction in 711. Only males were sent because mothers knew what that was all about. And that is the part of the problem that we're suffering through now with, or were suffering through with the daughters of the American Revolution and our womb men thinking that those are the same as us. And they're not. They're not. The reason for not having womb men go into Europe to say was so that the heredity would not be passed on, because it comes through her, not him. That's why that's why then they say we took the women, and they're saying that men took their women as slaves. That's not true. And that is the twisting of the story that is in the executive order. That twisting of the story saying that we did that to them, that's why they could do that to us. That is the story that says that we were warring with them, that's why they could do that with us. We didn't war with them even at the worst times, because until the last couple hundred years, when we started to get stupidified, we knew that war didn't make any sense. It's designed to confuse and to make people destroy things, but that's it. So just needed to clarify that thing. It's important. Lots more to it. Peace and love. And now I go quiet.
Yes. Absolutely. Let me camel back on that, Justice Jeremore, because that's very key. Nationality comes through the matriarch. And when the thing with regard to the heredity, when we really should not be amalgamating either. However, it does not corrupt the bloodline, because any heir coming from our womb is us. You are what your mother is. I know Maury Povich don't want to believe it, but it's the truth. You are what your mother is. And she is what her mother is. And she is what her mother is. And so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. And you can't even corrupt our bloodline when you're talking about the Moorish womb. No matter who we mate with, the heir will be an heir, because the estate comes through the matriarch. That's why there could be why we didn't go ourselves into Europe. We sent the sons into Europe. Because the foreign European Albions were on the brink of non-existence, and in order for them to exist any longer, they had to mix with Moorish males, the men, so that their wombs could produce more European Albions. So even if you have a Moorish father, You are what your mother is still. And that's not that's just a fact, it's just science. And guess what? No matter where you go, the estate still belongs to the heirs. So we're not trying to you know, we can't tell them get off American soil or get off our land, because if they go to the bottom of the sea, that's still ours. So now we got to be heirs, competent heirs, and deal with it, because we created all of that. Islam, we created all of that. And now we're competent, and we're becoming more competent every day to deal with our creation. So that's why the moving away from amalgamation must be the case. We must do that. We can't keep doing that, son, because we want to fix what it is that was out of alignment. But that fixing of whatever was out of alignment starts with the matriarch. Yes, that is the gorilla in the room. Yes, and you know, we're not calling anyone a gorilla, but you know, DNA is what DNA is, and ONA is what ONA is. And so we don't wish ill or harm on any of our creations, but everyone will get in alignment today with who they really are. And that starts with the matriarch, and then followed by our sons, of course, because they are the sovereign fruit of our stargate, and we love our sons and honor them all. And so, again, those three, the 3 M's, we can stop it at the first one. And that's another reason why they are intent on saying that America was not founded on Islamic principles. Because if they can get their missionaries in, they can slip the mercenaries in, and then they can slip that military in. And that's where we come in and say everything stops right here. And it stops and starts with us. And we've been able to bring all of that to a halt, a very slow grind right now, by our own actions, by our own sovereign proclamations on the public record. And so now that you see even in the USC codes that writing, according to the corporates, even when they write things, they don't honor, that's why they don't honor anything. Because they're writing, if you're writing as a citizen, they don't have to honor it. They can just call it a symbol and call it a day and throw you in jail. If you think you're a citizen. Okay? But our sovereign analog affidavits have done exactly what they should have done and are doing what they should do. And that is why we speak by affidavit in red and all lowercase letters, unless we're talking about the fake corporate. Then we speak they're in black, okay? There is a place for blue ink, and we'll be going into that over the coming weeks. Right now, we needed to kind of put a halt to everything first so that we can clear up the air and proceed lawfully, competently, peacefully. So the said failure of the corporate capitalist system has led us directly to the previously mentioned analog foundation necessary for the great leap forward. So we've been brought all the way back to our beginnings in everything, law, commerce, all of that stuff. We get to start over with a foundation that's solid and not corporate. Okay. There is a necessary learning curve that we've already stepped forward into. This curve will abolish much of what we think we need today in favor of our own creative super ability to know the analog foundation thoroughly in order to supersede it. So we're learning the foundations of everything: law, who we are, who they are, the beginnings of the vast estate. We're learning all of that and putting emphasis on jurisdiction and erudition, teaching and learning. Why? Because once we get those foundational principles in place, which they're in place now, all we have to do is continue learning, teaching, and demonstrating them. Now that we're there, we actually get to supersede that. And I'm going to put the word supersede in the chat so you can see what that really means. S-U-P-E-R-S-E-E-D. What does that mean? That means that we are going to fertilize and seed the foundation that we've laid so that our estate grows and the estate has the nature of us. So that is a reproductive term. And I spelled it S-U-P-E-R-S-E-E-D because the word seed is there. Seed meaning reproduction by the heirs in its natural form. We're going to reproduce the estate over and over and over and over and over. And it's going to be a natural reproduction, growth. And the thing about us is when we reproduce, we are not really reproducing. We are producing the real thing all over again. It's not a reproduction like a copy machine. A copy machine doesn't give you the original, it gives you a copy of it. We produce original after original after original after original. That's why we're so wealthy. It's like the goose that laid the golden egg. It keeps laying golden eggs, and each golden egg is golden.
Islam?
Islam.
If you see the what I did with the two words, you know, the compound word supersede,
yeah,
and the words super and seed, C-E-D-E,
yeah,
that is exactly what it means, to super give. And
yes,
in order to super give, you have to be super.
yes. And you have to have it to give.
Exactly. And so that is what the supersede. Of course, they change the words as we know them to confuse it, because remember, as we think something is, that's what it is. And so when we think it some certain ways, we're thinking confusion, create confusion, and thus they can use it because they know how to use the lower end of our abilities and to siphon it and retask it. But once we know and we start, that's why it's critical for us to fix our thinking.
Yes.
Islam.
Yes. And fixing our thinking is a matter of repetition. All we have to do, because that's how they did it, all we have to do is keep repeating our demonstrations and keep repeating who we are and keep repeating the law back and forth to one another even, because we're programming each other as we talk.
Islam.
That's why it's so important what we say, and that we speak in a manner that transfers awesome energy to one another, which can be, assisting one another in getting over something, or pointing out something that may not be the right thing. Point it out. That's going to help with the programming of us by our own hand. We're programming ourselves. See, nature abhors a vacuum. And as we get rid of all of the colonistic, commercial, mercenaries, foreign, Christian in all capital letters, European modern stuff, we have to replace that with something. And it's better that we replace it with what we want it to be, according to the law. And that's why it's best for us to talk to one another and listen to one another more than we listen to anyone else, more than we listen to foreigners. Erudition. Is important. That's the key to proper programming. Yes, we hit the truth center with one another. Albions, foreign Europeans cannot hit the truth center because they don't have one for anything to start out truthfully. If you're going to tell the truth, it has to come from a place of truth, doesn't it? The only time they tell the truth is when they're faced with death, like our prophet said. And right now, they're starting to tell the truth. And that goes back to, I would implore you to read the Executive Order 13958 entitled Establishing the President's Advisory 1776 Commission. In reality, I'll tell you what I know in my spirit about that, is they're actually telling us how to set up some things that we're setting up. Because again, we are the United States in all lowercase letters in red. That was the jump off point for all the other stuff. Just like our sovereign appellations at birth was the point where they started all the fraud. They looked at it and then they did 1 USC 1. Typed some things up, did some writing, put some capital letter symbols in there, and it was off to the debt races for them. And so, with regard, keeping in mind that the technology to supersede anything that we're dealing with right now already exists. It's been in existence for millions of years. But we had to come back to writing, handwriting, hand autographing. We had to do that first so that as we move forward with our new system, that the new system, the foundation of it, is pure and clear and clean and not corporate. And that's the purpose of putting documents on the public record. Is you're laying the foundation for your own vast estate. And that foundation must be clean and clear and sovereign and not corporate. So when the corporates start talking back, and they, like if you send them something and they send you something back, that means there's something in your document that told them that it's okay for them to speak to you and not obey your command, but give you a bunch of citizen stuff. That's why us learning from one another is the best way for us to learn. The executive order number, again, is 13958, and it was released November the 2nd. So we are now that we have laid this foundation, okay, and we continue to lay the foundation. So again, don't stop putting your affidavits, lawful affidavits out there. now we're calling forth the knowledge to create all that will move us forward, okay? The existing technology and the highly advanced technology that we put in place eons ago is about to be released to us through the Akashic records contained within us. But the only way that the ancestors are going to allow us to know those, to recognize those things, because we know them already. It's just a matter of them being revealed to us through cleared energy and demonstration, sovereign, competent demonstration of our sovereign status. And so that highly advanced, already existing technology and all that has to do with us moving forward must be, it starts with our status, our sovereign status, and putting that on the public record and terminating the corporate contract. And then now when we do that, we automatically create room for the information to come forward. That information and the knowledge, the ancient knowledge to create all that we need to create, it comes from our ancient Akashic record within us, combined with the foundational analog principles that we are uncovering, such as doing everything in red and all lowercase letters and putting it on the public record and going about throughout our day demonstrating our nationality every opportunity that presents itself. We will go through the exercises of analog processes only to quickly supersede them. We're going to rise above the analog processes, but we have to do them now. Analog banking, analog applications, analog document recording, analog liens, court actions. We're actually doing our own court actions. And we're doing it in the most, and this is why we're so glad that ego had nothing to do with us getting our court action started. Because we had, you know, there were some who were saying, well, you just doing that on freeconferencecall.com. That's not anything legitimate. Actually, it is. Our word is exactly the law. And because we were able to set pride and ego aside and go ahead and do it, it's done now, and it's on its road. It's gaining steam and gaining power and authority because the heirs are doing their own court actions. And today I was just listening to a video of the Albions who tried to do the same thing back in the it was, I believe, 2008 or 2007 or something like that, where they tried to come out of that court system and start their own court system. And just for a minute, the system recognized what they were doing, but then after that, everybody started getting slammed because they're not the heirs. They're not us. They're not us. So again, yes, many of them are. The system that we're referring to, that we put in place, will acknowledge and recognize us. And it already has. I mean, if you go out and look at the court actions that are out there on the public record by the heirs, we would have never thought we could do anything close to that 3 years ago.
Islam. There is something to note carefully before we, and again, it has to be reiterated. Donald Trump is doing what he was put there to do, which every so-called chief executive should have been doing. Donald Trump is not doing that for us. He's doing that because he must obey, because he knows the law and is not clouded by those who do not know it. So many are going to fight against what he's doing, but he's doing it for the right reasons. And for those reasons, he has protections that others cannot access. We just need to know that we are the ones doing this. Each of us doing what we do does the whole thing, because each and every one of us is the whole thing, acting out whatever part we think we need to act out at this time. You're it. Tag. You've all been tagged. You know that. Just be it, because you can't be any less than that, no matter how you try. Islam. Uh-oh. I will go quiet. What happened?
Islam, what? Did somebody get dropped? Everything went silent.
I heard Delilah has the virus too. What's going on?
Islam, can you
Melo's
guys
in the
hear
hospital.
Islam.
Melo's in the hospital.
Somehow I can't
and
get
Delilah,
it.
I heard Delilah died. Is that right, Sadie?
Peace and love, peace and love, peace and love.
Melo's got the virus, is that right? Yeah, I guess maybe Melo died too. Well, I thought you weren't supposed to give me any energy. I thought Paul you guys did not give me any energy. Light communication. Well, this is a whole bunch of energy that's giving me extra power that you're giving me. Melo has the virus. Melo has the virus. Delilah oh my goodness. It's only a
Grand Rising to the Moors.
We love the Avalanche.
Grand Rising.
Oh, yeah.
Grand
Only you can prevent forest
Islam.
fires.
All right, y'all. Islam. Way to go, Morris.
Islam.
Way to go. Way to go. Way to go.
Islam.
Islam. Yeah.
Islam.
So now, gosh, I just love us because we're so on the same page. So what we were talking about before this, hang on just a second. Okay. I'm going to have to, it's still out. So again, let me just
Are you guys all?
what they have right there is they can mess with, a few things and say a few things, but if that's all you got, you might want to go have a seat somewhere and let us go ahead and do what we got to do. If that's the best you can come up with. So again, the things that we've done, the court action, yes, in the chat, just like a Tyler, indeed. The court action that we've done, the liens and things that we've done, those things have moved us completely out of that corporate capitalist system. They know we're leaping forward, and we do not need them anymore. And because we're setting up our own everything. And that is going to include, at some point, heirs, it's going to include the Vanguard. And, the Morse Vanguard is exactly what it says it is. So we're working on that part of it now. But before we do that, we must clear our energies and make sure that we know that this is not about war and going face to face and toe to toe with no subjects that don't know law. You know how we used to say sticks and stones can break our bones, but teasing and words never hurt? That's all they have right now is some name calling and breaking into a meeting and carrying on like children, That stuff does not bother us. We got, that doesn't bother us. It doesn't bother us. We got things to do. And the most they can do is try and disrupt a meeting. But that doesn't even work because here we are again. We're meeting, and we're going to continue meeting and talking about the terminating, keeping the contracts terminated so that we can make this great leap forward. This great leap forward is going to be exactly what it was meant to be in terms of why we're doing all we're doing. The ancestors could not show us the great leap forward from the very beginning. We had to get to this point first, and then we can start talking about the great leap forward. But we can't talk about the great leap forward if some words from a foreign subject are going to break our energy pattern of peace and love. And then we had to know how to get beyond the fraudulent system. The fraudulent, I'm unlocking the conference here briefly just so that, because there's a couple of more that want to come back in.
Islam?
So, yes, Islam Justice.
I'd like to do my friend, I got him in to the meeting. Thank you for unlocking it. His name is
You're
Elijah.
welcome.
His name is Elijah Porter Bay, and I talked to. I'm trying to get everybody to tune in, so I finally got one. He's a SEPTA retiree from the bus driver. So I say hi to his sister Lake.
Yes, Islam.
What's going on, Lake Tajiri Day?
Welcome, Justice Elijah. We appreciate that you're here. We're glad you're here. And
I don't know how else
We welcome you. Come back at will.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We're so glad you're here. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yes, and Justice Frank, we just love your presence and your energy. We appreciate you.
We all love you. We all love
yes, Islam. So the analog liens, yes, Islam. The analog liens and court actions are allowing us to set the foundation to quickly move beyond all that we saw as obstacles to the vast estate. Our estate is so much bigger than what we see. We've been shown, they show domiciles and conveyances and etc. But our estate is far bigger than that. It's far greater than even that. Yes, the heirs need domiciles and conveyances. We know that. We know that. That's a part of our estate too. Domiciles and conveyances are a part of our estate too. But we needed to get the foundational pieces in place first. That's what this is all about, is competently putting the foundation in place so that everything else that comes after that is incorruptible. It cannot be corrupted by foreign energy. Foreign energies cannot touch our vast estate, and they know that. And as we continue to lay down this analog foundation in preparation for things going into interstellar dimensions, we had to first learn the foundations of everything and then demonstrate it. And that's another reason why we are learning to look to the stars as well, because that's a part of all of this. Our estate is so much bigger, and our authority is so much greater, and our status means so much more than we ever imagined. And we're being prepared for that now. But see, we have to ensure that we are able to make it past the stuff that we were dealing with previously, and that some of us are still dealing with. And some are just going into testing. Fortunately, we're here. We're all here, and we can assist one another as we're going into testing. Some are coming out of testing. Some are preparing for the next levels of testing. That's all this is. But I will tell you this, once you get past a certain level of testing, it's going to make everything else so much easier, because you will have broken the programming that says that anyone else has the authority to rule over you. No one has the authority to do that when the heirs are concerned. We can't even rule over each other. We actually have to get each other's cooperation. We have to be unified with one another. And any heirs that are resistant to that, don't worry about it. We keep going. The ancestors will align all the energies the way they're supposed to. Know that. That's true. So, unrealized by most, we, the sovereign, original, indigenous, Moorish American heirs, have already put the foundational analog system in place that our prophet Noble Jew Ali talked about. He said in the 2000s, the heirs, the Moors, will come into their own being. We will put our own foundation in place on top of the ancestral foundation, that we would put that in place and remove that corporate, fake, fraudulent surface, because it was a surface, sur meaning fake, just like a surname is not a real name. It's not a real appellation. Surface, the surface of the estate is not the real face of the estate. We're the real face of the estate heirs, all of us. And so we have put the foundational analog system in place, and the more heirs that wake up and do this, the greater and greater and greater and greater the estate becomes realized to be, because it's infinite already. Everyone knows that. It's just a matter of it will be revealed as further more intimate for us. And so we did the study with the help of our teachers, and we're going to continue that. We did the study. We then combined our sovereign, original, indigenous, ancient, written, Moorish, handwritten Moorish government affidavit. We combined that with current computer technology. So that's where typing up the affidavit and putting it on our government letterhead and then printing it out and hand autographing it. We have brought, that was the breach that needed to be repaired. That was one of the main breaches in us moving forward, and historically that breach needed to be repaired because there had been a breach between that which is ancient and that which is future. There was a breach between the ancient foundations and where we're going. There was a breach there. And we are repairing that breach each and every day by putting our sovereign affidavits on the public record. And so having combined all of that with current technology, like this platform that we're on, that repaired the breach, and it meets with the foundations of all technology, past, present, and future. So we went all the way back to where computer technology began and the beginnings of the makings of computer hardware, software, operating systems, databases, basic computer languages, and all of that. We've gone all the way back to that. That's what that fake system was all about. It was to teach us that basic stuff so that we could then go forward. Okay? So I won't belabor that any further because we are getting late in the hour. We're at about 2 hours and 6 minutes, and we want to go ahead and bring everything to a stopping point, basically, until our next call, which will be, we have one on Wednesday, and then one on Thursday, and then another one on Sunday. So we have these calls every week, Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And on Wednesday, the calls are at 12 Eastern, which is 11 Central, which is 9 Pacific. That's on Wednesdays. On Thursdays, it's 7 Eastern, which is 6 Central, 6 p.m. Central, which is also 4 p.m. Pacific. And then we have calls on Sunday. So are there any other questions, comments, etc.? Islam. If not, peace and grand rising to the air.
Peace and grand rising.
Peace and love.
Peace and love.
Peace and grand rising.
Is this the Pauline Cult Show? Is the Cult Show over with tonight? Pauline Cult Show. Goodbye to the Pauline Cult Show. Cult Show.
Grand rising. Peace and love, everybody.
Peace and love.
Peace and love.
Wow.
Peace and love, Grandma.
Peace and love, grand rising. Islam.